I opened my eyes with my cheek pressed against hot brick, the smell of ash in my mouth, and 6 royal guards hammering on the front door of my glass workshop. For one very stupid second, I thought I had fallen asleep beside Furnace 3 again. Then the memories hit. Not ordinary memories, not the soft, useful kind like where I put the iron tongs or which shelf held the cobalt sand. I remembered fluorescent lights, safety goggles, borosilicate tubes, vacuum chambers, stress fractures spreading through glass like tiny frozen lightning. I remembered dying in a clean white laboratory at 41 when a pressurized vessel failed because some executive wanted one more test before maintenance. And then I remembered my name here. Elias Vorn, 28, licensed bottle artisan of the Southern Potion Market, owner of a small glass workshop in the artisan quarter of Valemere, current suspect in the Royal Army supply explosion scandal. So yes, not my finest morning. The guards hit the door again, hard enough to shake powdered silica from the rafters. Elias Vorn, someone shouted, by order of the Crown Quartermaster, open this door and submit to arrest for the sale of defective war potion containers. I pushed myself upright. My left palm was burned, my apron was scorched, and a half-finished batch of potion bottles lay cooling on the annealing rack beside me. Except they were not cooling properly. I knew that before I even touched them. The furnace flame in front of me had turned blue. Not ordinary blue, not the clean blue of a hot flame. This was deep sapphire, thin at the edges, twisting around the glass like it was afraid to touch it. That was new. The original Elias had known the furnace was strange. Every Vorn artisan inherited one living flame from the old glass houses. His grandfather called it a blessing. His father called it expensive to feed. Elias called it unreliable because it only changed color once or twice a year and never explained itself. But I understood danger signs. A flame that reacted only to hidden stress in glass was not unreliable. It was a diagnostic tool. A limited one, sure. It did not tell me the solution. It did not whisper formulas. It did not give me a system panel with numbers and cheerful lies. It just turned blue when the glass contained magical stress that could become failure. Danger, not answers. Honestly, I respected that. Most people in this world preferred answers that flattered them. I stood, stumbled, and grabbed the edge of the bench while the rest of Elias Vorn's life arranged itself behind my eyes. The Vorn workshop was 3 rooms wide, 2 floors tall, and drowning in debt. My father had died 2 winters ago after lung fever. My mother's hands shook too badly to etch seal rings anymore. My younger sister, Mara, was 17 and pretending she did not skip meals so I could buy furnace salt. We had one royal supply contract. 240 pressure bottles for the Army's new Thunderblood war potion. It should have paid enough to clear 3 old loans and replace the cracked roof over the annealing room. Instead, 12 bottles had exploded during a military inspection at dawn. No soldiers died, thank the saints, but 9 were burned, 3 horses bolted through the quartermaster's pavilion, and 1 captain lost both eyebrows. Apparently, noble officers considered eyebrows an essential matter of national security. And somehow the blame had already landed on me. Not Master Alchemist Thern, who created the unstable potion formula. Not the quartermaster who rushed the order. Not the noble suppliers who handled the bottles after delivery. The low-born glassmaker with no guild family, no noble sponsor, and a workshop that still used his grandfather's furnace. The front door cracked under another strike. I looked at the batch on my rack again, my eyes narrowed. On Earth, I had spent 17 years working with scientific glass. I had watched tiny cracks turn million-coin machines into glittering shrapnel. I had seen what happened when people treated glass as just a container. Glass remembered everything. Heat, pressure, impact, cooling rate, strain, abuse. This world put potions in glass and acted like the bottle was beneath notice. That mistake was about to become very expensive for someone else. I walked to the door, lifted the latch, and opened it before the guards could break what I could not afford to replace. 6 armored men stood outside. Behind them, half the artisan quarter had gathered in the rain, pretending not to stare while absolutely starring. At the front was Captain Relvaris, Royal Supply Inspector, clean-shaven, gold-badged, and visibly annoyed that a criminal had opened the door politely. Beside him stood Master Alchemist Thern. He wore layered green robes, silver alchemy rings on all 10 fingers, and the soft smile of a man who had already written my confession in his head. Elias Vorn, Thern said, loud enough for the neighbors. I warned the crown that cheap artisans cut corners. I looked past him to the wagon where my returned bottles sat in a crate. 6 were intact, 4 were cracked, 2 were nothing but wrapped shards. The furnace flame behind me flickered blue through the open doorway. And for just a moment, Thern's smile tightened. There it was. The first mistake. He expected me to beg. Instead, I wiped ash off my cheek and said, You brought the failed bottles back. Captain Varus frowned, Of course. Good, I said, then I request a public court furnace test under Article 9 of the Royal Supply Failure Act. The entire street went quiet. Thern blinked once. Captain Varus stared at me like the bottle boy had just quoted tax law at a dragon. I did not smile. I knew exactly what I had said because Elias knew the contract. He had memorized it out of terror before signing. Royal supply contracts required magical failure evidence to be tested publicly if the accused artisan requested it before arrest. Most artisans never requested it. Most artisans panicked. Most artisans did not have the memories of a dead laboratory technician sitting behind their eyes, looking at the cracks in royal evidence and thinking, uneven cooling, localized reheating, deliberate thermal shock. Thern's second mistake was assuming glass could not testify. I stepped aside and held out my wrists. Arrest me if you need to, I said, but touch none of my furnaces, none of my racks, and none of those shards without court witnesses. If I sold defective bottles, the furnace will show it. If someone altered them after delivery, it will show that too. Thern's smile came back, but it had lost half its polish. Glassmakers, he said softly, always dramatic about sand. I met his eyes. And alchemists, I said, always confident around things they do not understand. That was when I saw Lysa behind him. Scar down the left side of her jaw, gray apprentice robe, one hand wrapped around a formula satchel like it was the only honest thing in the street. She did not speak. She only looked at the return crate, then at me, then at Thern. And in her face I saw fear. Not of me. Of what he had made. They put iron cuffs on me, but they did not drag me. That mattered in Valemere. The royal capital ran on appearances the way lamps ran on oil. A man dragged through the potion market was already guilty. A man escorted under contract dispute was inconvenient but still useful. I had exactly one useful thing left. Procedure. Captain Varus sealed my workshop with a red wax sunmark, posted 2 guards at the door, and ordered the evidence crate taken to the Court of Practical Failures. Yes, that was the real name. This kingdom had a royal court for marriages, one for murder, one for tax, and one for magical objects that did not behave as advertised. It sounded ridiculous until you remembered that a bad kettle enchantment once flooded an entire duke's estate with boiling soup. Bureaucracy grows where explosions happen. They locked me in a holding room under the west wing of the court furnace hall. It was not a dungeon, exactly, more like a storage closet that had developed legal authority. I sat on a wooden bench, flexed my burned hand, and tried to breathe. That was when the second layer of memory settled. Elias Vorn had been talented but not respected. His bottles were clean, balanced, and consistent, but the Potion Guild treated glassmakers like furniture that sent invoices. Alchemists got robes, patronage, research grants, and students who bowed. Glass artisans got burns, debts, and lectures about reducing costs. The war potion contract had been unusual. Master Thern had chosen the Vorn workshop personally, claiming he wanted humble reliability. Elias had nearly cried from relief. Poor man. Poor me technically. Thern's formula was called Thunderblood. It was supposed to let soldiers drink 1 vial and triple their reflexes for 7 minutes. A breakthrough, everyone said. A patriotic miracle, everyone said. Elias had seen Lysa deliver warnings twice. The potion pressure rose after bottling. The mana kept expanding even when sealed. The test batch needed vented crystal, not ordinary pressure glass. Therne ignored her. Then, 3 days before final army inspection, he visited Elias' workshop with 2 assistants and demanded faster delivery. Elias refused to skip annealing. Therne smiled, complimented his discipline, and left. After that, Elias found 3 cooling racks mysteriously shifted near the draft vent. He blamed himself. That memory made my jaw tight. Because now I understood what the old Elias had missed. Glass does not fail from one insult, it fails from accumulated disrespect. Heat it unevenly, cool one side too fast, tap the neck while the body is still stressed, store it near active mana vapor, fill it with an expanding potion and pretend tradition outranks physics. Sooner or later the crack collects its debt. The holding room door opened. Lysa stepped in carrying a tray of water, black bread, and a legal witness token pinned to her robe. Her scar pulled tight when she looked at my cuffs. "I have permission to bring food," she said. Her voice was low, careful, the voice of someone used to surviving powerful rooms. "Kind of them," I said. "I assume the bread is not explosive." She almost smiled, almost. Then she set the tray down and whispered, "You should not have requested Article 9. "Why?" "Because Master Therne controls 3 of the 5 court-assessors for alchemical matters." "Does he control the furnace?" Her eyes flicked up. That confirmed it. "No," she said, "no one controls the court furnace." "Then I like my chances." She sat across from me, shoulders rigid. Up close, the scar was not old, maybe 6 months, a pale, shiny line from cheekbone to chin. "His formula was unstable," she said. "From the first batch, I recorded pressure bloom after sealing, 8% expansion in 2 hours, 12% after agitation. He ordered me to remove the notes." "Did you?" Her fingers tightened around the satchel. "I copied them." I looked at her properly then. Not a savior, not a sudden solution. A scared apprentice with evidence, trapped under a famous master who could ruin her with one letter. Good. Real allies were rarely convenient. "Why help me?" I asked. "Because your bottles did not fail in our private test," her mouth twisted. "And because when I told him the formula needed another month, he said soldiers were cheaper than lost contracts." My expression must have changed. She leaned back slightly. I lowered my voice. "Lysa, I am going to ask you something and I need the truth. Did Therne handle the bottles after they left my shop?" "Yes." "How long?" "2 nights." "Where?" "In his lower heat room." I laughed once, not because it was funny. Because it was perfect. A lower heat room was used to wake stubborn alchemical sediment. Warm, cycling air, mana burners, terrible place for already stressed glass, worse if someone wanted to create uneven expansion without obvious hammer marks. Therne had not just sabotaged my bottles. He had done it in a room designed to leave a thermal signature. I leaned back against the wall. "Can you get me one clean sample of his potion?" Her face went pale. "That is theft." "No, not without authorization. But tomorrow morning when the court demands comparison samples, they will ask him for one. He will bring a polished demonstration vial. I need you to watch whether it comes from the public batch or his private stabilized batch." She stared at me for a long second. Then she whispered, "You think he has 2 formulas?" "I think men like Therne always keep a safe bottle for themselves and dangerous bottles for everyone beneath them." That time she did smile, but it was sharp and sad. "You really are not like the other artisans." I looked at my burned palm. "No," I said, "I used to work somewhere that also called warnings expensive." I did not explain Earth, not then. How exactly do you tell someone you remember another world where glass tubes carried vacuum pressure, lasers bent through lenses, and people wore badges saying safety first while ignoring every technician who knew what was about to break? So I said the simpler truth. "Glass keeps records, tomorrow I will read them." Lysa glanced at the door. "The hearing is at noon in 3 days. "Good. Good." I nodded. I need 1 day to survive, 1 day to make something they cannot ignore, 1 day to make sure that when Therne falls, he hits every step on the way down. Her eyes softened for just a heartbeat. "You are very calm for a man in cuffs." No, I said, I am furious, I just prefer my anger annealed. She gave me a strange look. Fair, that sounded better in my head. The first court session took place in a testing room shaped like a stone amphitheater, because apparently even evidence needed an audience in Valemere. 5 assessors sat behind a crescent bench. Captain Varus stood beside the evidence crate. Master Thern stood in the center with his robes arranged beautifully and his face arranged tragically. I stood opposite him in borrowed gray court linen, my cuffs removed but my reputation still on the floor. The gallery held merchants, artisans, 2 royal scribes, 4 military officers, and at least 30 people from the potion market who had come to watch my workshop die. I did not blame them. Free entertainment is free entertainment. The court furnace sat behind the assessors, taller than a carriage, black iron ribs wrapped around white ceramic stone. Unlike my family furnace, its flame burned silver. Chief Assessor Merlin, an elderly woman with diamond spectacles and no visible patience, struck a bell once. Elias Vorn, she said, you requested Article 9 public furnace testing before arrest was processed. Do you understand that if your bottles are found defective by craft origin, your license may be revoked immediately? I understand. Do you understand that malicious accusation against a royal supplier carries penalty? I do. Master Thern sighed with theatrical mercy. Chief Assessor, I take no pleasure in this. Young Vorn is overwhelmed by grief and debt. His father was a respectable artisan. It pains me that desperation may have driven poor choices. I looked at him. A lesser man would have called him a liar. I had learned in 2 lives that liars enjoy being called liars. It lets them perform outrage. So I said nothing. Chief Assessor Merlin pointed to the evidence crate. Begin. A court handler lifted the first intact returned bottle with brass tongs and placed it on a ceramic pedestal before the furnace. The flame remained silver for 3 breaths. Then it turned blue. Not bright. Not dramatic. Just a thin line of sapphire curling along the bottle's shoulder, exactly where the neck met the body. The gallery murmured. My chest tightened. So the court furnace could see stress too. Good, my family flame was not broken, it was simply specialized. Assessor Merlin leaned forward, record visible stress response. Thern's jaw moved. The handler rotated the bottle. The blue line thickened on one side only. I spoke before anyone could ask. That is asymmetric shoulder stress. If the flaw came from my initial forming, the stress ring would be even around the neck. One-sided stress means uneven cooling or reheating after annealing. An assessor with a green alchemist badge scoffed, glassmakers always blame weather. No, I said, bad glassmakers blame weather, good ones blame temperature gradients. A few artisans in the gallery made quiet choking sounds, either laughter or fear, hard to tell. Chief Assessor Merlin's mouth twitched. Explain, she said. I stepped closer, careful not to touch the evidence. A potion bottle has 3 dangerous zones, base, shoulder, and lip. The base holds impact stress, the lip holds closure stress, the shoulder holds expansion stress from contents. My delivered batch was annealed for 8 hours at low glow and cooled over 4 more, that creates even relaxation. Thern lifted a hand, none of this changes the explosion. No, I said, it explains why the explosion waited until your formula entered the bottle. That got a reaction. Captain Varus looked at Thern. Thern smiled calmly, a desperate theory. Then test the broken shards. The handler placed 3 shards into a shallow ceramic tray. The court furnace flame turned blue so sharply that even the guards stepped back. The blue gathered along tiny crescent lines near the edges. I leaned in. There they were. Micro cracks. Not random, not impact first, they curved like little moons across the glass wall. Thermal shock marks. On Earth, I had seen the same pattern in tubes rushed from hot flame to cold bench. I had seen engineers blame bad material until I showed them the fracture origin under polarized light. Here I did not have polarized light. But I had mana, silver flame, and a room full of people who loved official procedure. I request lens inspection, I said. The green-badged assessor frowned, for bottle shards. For royal evidence. Chief Assessor Marilyn nodded. Granted. The court handler brought a magnifying lens, thick as my palm, mounted on a brass arm. It was crude, distorted at the edges, full of bubbles. Honestly, it offended me. But it enlarged enough. I guided the handler without touching the shard. Angle it toward the furnace, now rotate the shard, stop. The crescent crack caught silver blue light. Gasps rose from the gallery. See the origin point? I said. The crack begins outside and travels inward. The bottle was stressed after completion. Thern stepped forward, or during his careless production. No, I said, because the interior fire polish is intact. If I had overheated it during forming, the inner layer would show flow distortion. This is surface shock. Someone warmed the outer glass unevenly, then let cooler air strike one side. Lysa stood near the side door, face pale, satchel held tight. Thern noticed her looking. I noticed him noticing. That was his third mistake. Men like Thern could never resist punishing witnesses before they knew what the witness had seen. He turned to the bench. Chief Assessor, we are wasting public time. The young man speaks in obscure craft jargon to avoid responsibility. I gave him a mild look. You are right about one thing, Master Thern. His eyes narrowed. This is obscure craft knowledge, which means whoever sabotaged the bottles needed access to heat rooms, potion mana, and enough arrogance to think glass does not keep evidence. The room went still. Chief Assessor Marilyn struck the bell once. Careful, Artisan Vorn. I bowed slightly. Of course, I request comparison with the retained delivery samples from my workshop. Thern's smile returned. Sadly, those samples were consumed in quality certification. I looked at him. No, they were not. The room shifted. Captain Varus checked a scroll. The contract required 3 retained samples. Yes, I said. 1 for the buyer, 1 for the seller, 1 for the court. Master Thern collected the buyer's sample. The army tested the court sample. Mine remains sealed in my workshop under royal wax. Thern's face did not change. But the silver rings on his fingers clicked together once. Tiny sound. Lovely sound. Chief Assessor Marilyn looked at Captain Varus. Retrieve it. Thern said surely that is unnecessary. The Chief Assessor did not even look at him. Noon tomorrow, she said, we continue. As the court dismissed, Thern passed close enough for only me to hear. You should have accepted disgrace quietly. I looked at the blue flame still curling around the broken shards. And you should have cooled the shoulder evenly. For the first time his eyes showed anger. Not fear yet. That would come later. They released me under bond because Article 9 protected accused artisans until testing concluded. That did not mean I was free. It meant I was allowed to return to my sealed workshop under guard, sleep in my own chair, and not leave the artisan quarter unless escorted. A generous cage, really. When Captain Varus broke the wax seal on my door, my mother was waiting inside with Mara. My mother's hair had gone almost white since father died. Mara stood behind her holding a broom like she might fight the royal army with cleaning equipment. I loved them immediately and painfully. That was one of the stranger parts of reincarnation. These emotions were not borrowed. Elias loved them. So did I. The memories had merged enough that I could not separate old grief from new responsibility. Mother touched my burned hand. Elias, she whispered. I am not condemned. Yet, Mara said. I looked at her. She lifted her chin. What, we are all thinking it. I laughed despite myself. Captain Varus cleared his throat. You may speak with family, you may work under observation, no disposal of evidence, no unsealed shipments, no private visitors without inspection. Can I use my furnaces? He hesitated. Under guard. Good, I said, I need to make a bottle. His eyebrows rose. 1 bottle. No, I said, 36, but one that matters. That evening, with 2 guards at the door and half the quarter pretending to buy vegetables while watching my windows, I restarted Furnace 3. The flame came alive orange, then gold, then for half a breath blue when I held up one of my older rejected bottles. I froze. The blue crawled through the glass in a crooked line. Danger. Not solution. I set the bottle down and whispered, thank you. The guard nearest me looked concerned. There. I tested 24 old pieces from the reject shelf. 8 made the flame turn blue, 6 of those had visible flaws once I knew where to look, 2 looked perfect. Those 2 taught me more than the cracked ones. The blue appeared before failure, before visible damage, before ordinary inspection. It showed hidden magical stress. On Earth, we used polarized light to see internal strain in glass. Here, the living furnace revealed monotension. The principle was different, but the behavior rhymed. Heat, stress, structure, light. Glass bent all of them. I cleaned the main bench, took out 3 types of sand, and began rebuilding my craft from first principles. Common potion bottles in Valemere were single-layer blown glass. Cheap, fast, clear enough to inspect color, fine for sleep drafts and stomach tonics, terrible for volatile mana mixtures. Pressure-safe vessels needed controlled thickness, rounded shoulders, relaxed stress, and material compatibility. But this world had something Earth did not. Monothreading. A glassmaker could lay hair-thin lines of powdered crystal between layers if the heat was right. Most artisans used it for decoration. Pretty spirals, noble perfume bottles, festival lamps. Decoration. I almost felt insulted. A thin inner layer could resist potion reaction. A middle monothread layer could distribute expansion. An outer layer could handle impact. 3 layers, bonded hot, annealed slowly with no hard corners for stress to gather. The first attempt collapsed like wet fruit. Mara laughed so hard she had to sit on a stool. "Is that royal military design?" she asked. "It is modern art," I said, "very expensive, you would not understand." The second attempt bubbled. The third warped. The fourth survived cooling, but turned the furnace flame faintly blue near the base. I marked the flaw, broke it safely inside a cloth box and checked the fracture, too much thickness at the foot, stress concentrated around the pontal scar. My hands remembered one kind of craft, my mind remembered another, they argued constantly. Earth glass taught precision. Vorn glass taught heat by color, by breath, by the way molten material sagged at the end of the pipe. By midnight my shoulders burned. By 2 in the morning, I had 6 clear vials cooling in the annealing chest. By dawn, 3 had passed the furnace flame without blue. 3 out of 36. Terrible production rate. Miracle proof. Lysa arrived just after sunrise under Captain Varus's supervision. She carried a court request scroll for comparison samples and a face that said she had not slept either. "You look awful," I said. "You are charming under indictment." "I try." She glanced at the guarded workbench. "You made new bottles. Pressure-safe vials." "That quickly?" "That badly," I said, "but 3 are good." She stepped closer. "How do you know?" I lifted one with tongs and held it before furnace 3. The flame stayed gold. She stared as if I had pulled a star from the ash. "That flame never did that for your father," she whispered. "It probably did," I said. "He may not have known what it meant." The sentence hit harder than I expected. How many tools are dismissed because no one speaks their language? How many people? Lysa set her satchel down. "Vern is bringing a perfect sample today." "Private formula." "I think so. I watched him switch cases. The public Thunderblood batch is stored in amber-marked vials. The one he selected had a green wax seal." "Can you prove it?" She swallowed. "Not alone." "Then do not try alone." I picked up one of the pressure-safe vials and set it on the bench between us. "We need him comfortable. He must think today is only about the bottles. Let him win small." Lysa frowned. "Why?" "Because if he feels cornered too early, he will destroy records, blame assistants, or flee into noble protection." Master Thern would never flee." I gave her a look. She sighed. "Fine, he would flee elegantly." "That is still fleeing." Captain Varus entered then, expression unreadable. "We leave in 1 hour." I nodded and wrapped my 3 successful vials in padded cloth. He noticed. "The court did not ask for new work." "No," I said, "but Master Thern keeps insisting I am just a cheap bottle seller. I feel educational." At the second hearing, the court tested my retained delivery sample. No blue. Not a flicker. The intact bottle I had kept sealed in my workshop showed even thickness, clean shoulders, and no hidden stress. The gallery murmured louder this time. Then they tested Thern's demonstration potion bottle. Also no blue. He smiled at me across the chamber. I let him. Chief Assessor Merlin recorded both results. This suggests the delivered cellar-retained sample was structurally sound at time of sealing. The green-badged assessor said, or lucky. I raised one hand. May I demonstrate something? The chief assessor sighed like she knew I was about to make her day longer. Briefly, I placed one of my new vials on the pedestal. This is a layered pressure-safe vial made last night using distributed monothreading. Thern laughed softly. You reinvented a perfume bottle and call it military craft. I filled it with water, I said. The gallery looked disappointed. Then Captain Varus, at my request, placed the vial into a pressure charm calibrated for training grenades. At 2 pressure marks, ordinary potion bottles cracked. Mine did not. At 4 the brass clamp groaned. At 6 the water inside flashed with compressed monolight. The vial held. The court furnace flame stayed silver. Captain Varus looked at me differently after that. At 8 pressure marks, the charm shut off automatically for safety. The vial was intact. The room was silent. I picked it up with tongs and set it before Thern's side of the bench. Glass, I said, is not packaging. Thern's expression remained pleasant, but there was a small pulse beating at his temple. Milestone 2. The first was proving sabotage. The second was proving I could make something no alchemist in that room could casually dismiss. Now I needed the third. Because Thern was still protected by fame, contracts, and the comfortable belief that low people could be inconvenient but never dangerous. Before leaving the court, I filed a second motion. I requested full formula pressure comparison of Thunderblood under public furnace conditions. Thern objected immediately. I expected that. Chief Assessor Merlin looked at the contract. Then she looked at Captain Varus. Then she looked at me. Under Royal Supply Failure Act Article 12, she said, if container failure and potion instability are both plausible causes, both must be examined before judgment. Thern's pleasant expression cracked. Just slightly. Noon tomorrow would decide the technical cause. Noon the day after would decide guilt. 3 days. Just like Lysa warned me. The countdown had teeth now. Thern tried to buy me that night. Not directly, of course. Powerful men rarely touch their own dirt if they can make someone else carry the shovel. A velvet carriage arrived outside my workshop at 9th bell, black curtains drawn, silver wheels silent on wet stone. A clerk stepped out wearing the emerald pin of Thern's private laboratory. Captain Varus nearly refused him entry, but the clerk carried a legal negotiation token. Apparently, even accused criminals were allowed to settle commercial disputes before being ruined. Very civilized, very poisonous. The clerk entered with 2 guards watching and placed a lacquer box on my bench. Inside were 50 gold crowns. Enough to pay my family debt twice. Enough to repair the roof, buy new sand stock, and keep Mara fed for 2 years. Enough to make a desperate man stupid. Master Thern offers compassion, the clerk said. I looked at the coins. Does he? He understands that court pressure can confuse young artisans. Withdraw the Article 12 formula comparison. Accept shared responsibility. Your license will be suspended for 1 year instead of revoked. Master Thern will privately sponsor your reinstatement. Mara, who was sweeping glass powder from the corner, stopped moving. My mother looked at me with fear in her eyes. Not greed. Fear. Because 50 crowns could save us. And refusing them could kill the workshop. The clerk saw that and smiled. That was his mistake. I had died once because people with money treated safety warnings as negotiation obstacles. I knew the shape of the trap. They never buy silence because the truth is harmless. I closed the box. Tell Master Thern I appreciate his confession. The clerk stiffened. This is not a confession. No, he is offering 50 crowns before the formula test to make the formula test disappear. That sounds like evidence of concern. You should be careful. I am Captain Varus, could you record the offer? Captain Varus's mouth twitched, already did. The clerk's face changed color. He took the box and left quickly. After the carriage disappeared, Mara whispered, we could have used that. I know. Mother sat down heavily. I turned to them both. If I accept Thern owns us, not for 1 year, forever, every contract, every rumor, every bottle that breaks anywhere near the capital becomes ours to swallow. Mara looked down. We are already starving politely, she said. That one hurt because she was right. I leaned against the bench, suddenly exhausted. I will fix it. You always say that. Yes, I said, but this time I remember a whole other life of people underestimating technicians. I have more material. Mara stared at me. Mother closed her eyes. That was not how I intended to tell my family about reincarnation, but subtlety had burned off somewhere around the arrest. I know it sounds mad, I said. Mother opened her eyes again. Your grandfather said the furnace flame chose one Vorn each century. Your father hoped it would be you. If another life came with it, then another life came with it. I had no answer to that. Mara raised her broom slightly. Were you rich in the other life? No. Powerful? No. Handsome? I was respected by 3 graduate students and 1 maintenance engineer. She wrinkled her nose, tragic. I laughed, the sound steadied me. Then I went back to work. For the 3rd milestone, I needed mirrors. Not decorative mirrors, not vanity plates backed with silver leaf, functional mirror glass layered with reflective monothreading at controlled angles. In this world, curses traveled through attention. Not all curses but minor ones, spite hexes, binding whispers, nausea knots. Noble duelists loved them because they looked elegant and left no bruises. A curse mage could glance at a servant and make their knees fail for an hour. Glass bent light. Mana followed attention. A mirror that bent light while distributing mana pressure might redirect a weak curse the way a lens redirected a beam. Maybe. Probably. Hopefully not explosively. The furnace flame helped only with danger. Every time my mirror layer trapped stress, it turned blue. It did not say why, it did not correct my angle, it did not care about my feelings. I made 14 mirror shards before dawn. 9 failed. 3 cracked. 1 reflected my face so badly I looked like a haunted spoon. The last one passed the flame. Thin, palm-sized, with smoky silver at the center and clear edges. When I tilted it toward the lamp, the reflection shifted half a breath late. That was either magic or sleep deprivation. Lysa arrived at first bell with 2 sealed quart vials of thunderblood for comparison transport. Her eyes went straight to the mirror shard. What is that? An argument. That does not answer anything. Most arguments do not. She stepped closer, then flinched. I looked at her sharply. What happened? She touched her scar. Nothing. Lysa. She looked away. I picked up the mirror shard with padded tongs and angled it toward her shoulder. The smoky surface rippled. For half a second, a dark thread appeared around her throat, then snapped back like an angry worm. My blood went cold. That, I said quietly, is not nothing. Her face went still. Apprentice obedience mark, she whispered. Minor curse, it tightens if I reveal private laboratory material without permission. I stared at the dark shimmer fatting from the mirror. How long? Since I copied the pressure notes. Thern had cursed her to keep her silent. Not enough to kill, not enough to trigger court alarms, just enough to make speaking feel like choking. A neat little noble cruelty. I held the mirror shard between us. Say 1 sentence. She shook her head. I cannot. Say the potion expanded. Her fingers trembled. Elias. The shard is angled away from you. If I am wrong, stop. She swallowed. The potion expanded. The dark thread flashed from her throat toward the mirror. The shard rang like a bell. The curse snapped backward into the air and dissolved as black sparks. Lysa gasped and grabbed the bench. Captain Varus's guard outside pushed the door open. Everything all right? No, I said, but it is improving. Lysa touched her throat. Tears stood in her eyes, furious and silent. You reflected it. Minor curse only, I said, staring at the shard. My hand shook. A weak one. I think I would not try it on anything heavier. She laughed once, breathless. That was weak. To a noble curse mage, probably. To the person wearing it, no. I did not know what to say to that. So I said the only useful thing. Can you speak at court now? She lifted her chin. Yes. Milestone 3. Mirror shards could reflect minor curses, which meant glass could do more than hold potions. It could hold pressure, reveal stress, bend mana, break silence. And Master Thern had built his entire lie on the belief that glass was beneath him. The formula comparison began at noon under 3 layers of warding and 1 layer of political theater. By then, half the capital seemed to know something interesting was happening in the court of practical failures. The gallery overflowed, artisans filled the back benches, alchemists stood in tight green clusters whispering, royal officers watched from the left side, faces grim. Thern arrived with 2 noble patrons. That told me plenty. A confident man brings evidence. A worried man brings status. He bowed to the assessors with perfect grace. I regret that my work must be dragged through this spectacle, but I welcome the truth. I almost admired him. Almost. Chief Assessor Maryland's diamond spectacles flashed. Then we will proceed. The court placed 3 vessels on separate pedestals. One contained water in an ordinary bottle, control sample. One contained thunderblood from the army batch in a standard royal vial. One contained thunderblood from Thern's demonstration sample in his green-sealed vial. The furnace flame began silver. The water did nothing. The army batch flickered blue at the glass shoulder within 20 breaths. The green-sealed sample did not. Thern folded his hands. As I have said, the formula is stable when placed in properly prepared containers. I raised one finger. Wait. At 40 breaths, the army batch developed red sparks near the liquid line. At 60, the glass gave a faint ticking sound. Captain Varus turned his head slowly toward Thern. At 90, the court handler stepped back. The blue flame thickened into a band around the bottle's neck. Chief Assessor Maryland said, "Record pressure expansion." The green-badged assessor cleared his throat. All volatile potions expand somewhat under furnace proximity. Then the demonstration sample should do the same, I said. Thern smiled, unless my demonstration bottle is superior. May we inspect it after heating? His smile thinned. The court waited 3 full minutes. The army batch vial cracked at the shoulder but did not explode because the warding caught it. Red vapor hissed into containment. The green-sealed vial remained perfect. A few alchemists murmured approval. Thern spread his hands. There, the army batch failed because the bottle was unfit. Lysa stepped forward from the side bench. Her face was pale but her throat was bare. No dark thread, no invisible hand. No, she said. The room turned. Thern's expression sharpened. Apprentice Lysa, he said softly, remember your obligations. She flinched but she did not choke. I held the mirror shard inside my sleeve, angled just enough. Not visible. Not dramatic. Useful. Lysa lifted her satchel. The formula in the army batch and the formula in the demonstration vial are not the same. The gallery erupted. Chief Assessor Maryland struck the bell twice. Silence. Thern laughed. Absurd, she is an apprentice dismissed for incompetence. I was not dismissed, Lysa said. You locked my bench and placed an obedience mark on me. That hit the room like a dropped anvil. Noble patrons shifted away from Thern by exactly 1 step. Small steps matter. Thern's eyes went cold. You cannot prove that. Lysa looked at me. I stepped forward and placed the mirror shard on the evidence tray. Actually, I said glass can. Chief Assessor Maryland stared at the shard. Explain. This mirror glass reflects minor curse residue. It was made from layered silver monothread and annealed under living flame. It does not break curses permanently. It does not identify the caster by name. It only shows direction of pressure. The green-badged assessor sneered. Convenient. Very, I agreed. Please invite a neutral curse clerk to test it. There was a pause. Thern had not expected that. The court summoned a clerk from the oath registry. She was a narrow woman with ink-stained fingers and the cheerful expression of someone about to ruin lunch for everyone. She cast 3 harmless binding threads against wax tokens. The mirror shard reflected 2, failed on 1 stronger thread and cracked along the corner. I winced. Still, it worked enough. Chief Assessor Marilyn looked at the clerk. Result: limited reflection of minor compulsion pressure, the clerk said. Not military grade, not dual grade, but real. Can it show recent residue? Possibly. The clerk held the cracked mirror toward Lysa's throat. A faint black thread shimmered, leading across the room toward Thern's right hand. His silver rings clicked. The room became very quiet. Thern's noble patrons took another step away. 2 steps, excellent progress. He lifted his chin. Even if an apprentice required discipline, that does not change unstable glass. I nodded. Correct. That startled him. I turned to Chief Assessor Marilyn. I request inspection of the green-sealed demonstration vial. Thern said immediately, that vial is proprietary. Captain Varus spoke before the bench could. It is evidence in a royal supply failure hearing. Thern looked at him like a chair had started giving legal opinions. The handler opened the green-sealed vial under warding. The potion inside smelled sharper than the army batch, less metallic, more mint, stabilizing frostleaf probably. Lysa had told me Thern hated frostleaf because it reduced potency by 4%. 4%. He had risked soldiers for 4%. The court furnace stayed silver around the empty green vial. Then I asked to test the glass itself. The handler rinsed it with neutral spirit and placed it before the flame. No blue. I leaned closer, watching the shoulder. Perfect. Too perfect. May I compare wall thickness? I asked. Chief Assessor Marilyn nodded. The court used a brass caliper. The army batch bottles averaged 3.1 lines at the shoulder. My delivery bottles averaged 3.2. The green vial measured 5.8. Almost double. I turned to the room. This is not a standard Vorn delivery bottle. This is reinforced alchemical display glass, likely made in the Northern Guild Quarter. The formula inside it is stabilized. The army formula was not. Master Thern tested safe potion in a reinforced vial and blamed my ordinary bottles for failing under a dangerous batch. Thern's face flushed. You cannot possibly know that from glass thickness. No, I said. I know it from glass thickness, flame response, pressure expansion, fracture origin, apprentice testimony, curse residue, and your offer of 50 crowns last night to make Article 12 disappear. Captain Varus held up a signed record. Beautiful man. Terrible eyebrows but beautiful timing. The gallery exploded. Chief Assessor Marilyn struck the bell until the sound cut through the room. Thern's expression twisted. Then he made his worst mistake. He raised his hand toward Lysa. Not dramatically, not with a villain's speech, just a quick, ugly curl of 2 fingers, silver rings flashing. A binding spell snapped through the air. Weak enough to be deniable. Strong enough to choke an apprentice. I moved before I thought. The cracked mirror shard was not enough for that spell. So I used myself. Or rather, I used what I had started making beneath my coat all night while everyone thought I was only preparing evidence. A mantle of linked mirror glass scales slid from under my collar and across my shoulders, thin as leaves, each one layered and angled. Not a cloak yet, not the final version. A rough prototype tied with copper thread and desperation. The binding spell struck my chest. The world rang blue. For one breath, every piece of glass in the courtroom reflected my face. Then the spell bounced. Not back with violence. Back with accuracy. It wrapped around Thern's own throat and wrist, tightening just enough to stop his hand in the air. He froze, eyes wide, bound by his own pressure. The court furnace flame behind him turned sapphire from floor to crown. Danger. Every assessor saw it. Every officer saw it. Every alchemist saw it. And for the first time, Master Thern looked at me as if I were not a bottle seller. He looked at me as if I were a consequence he had failed to calculate. After that, the hearing stopped being about whether my bottles were defective and started being about how many laws Thern had broken in 1 week. The answer, according to the oath registry clerk, was at least 7, pending a more enthusiastic review. I liked her. Chief Assessor Marilyn ordered the doors sealed, not locked, sealed, the kind of seal that glowed gold across the arch and made every guilty person in the room suddenly interested in breathing quietly. Thern stood in the center with his own rebounded binding spell still curled around his wrist like a dark bracelet. He tried to speak twice. Both times, the curse tightened just enough to make his words come out polite. I found that tasteful. Captain Varus presented the recorded settlement offer. Lysa presented copied pressure notes from Thern's laboratory. The court handler presented thickness measurements. I presented the fracture explanation again, slowly enough that even the noble patrons could follow it. That was important. Revenge feels good for a minute. A clear technical explanation ruins someone forever. The timeline formed in public. 5 weeks before the explosion, Lysa warned that Thunderblood expanded after sealing. 4 weeks before, Thern altered the formula to increase battlefield potency. 3 weeks before, he signed the royal supply contract promising stability in standard pressure bottles. 10 days before, he selected my workshop because I was cheap, indebted, and unlikely to challenge him. 3 days before delivery, he entered my workshop and saw I would not skip annealing. 2 nights after delivery, the bottles were held in his lower heat room. 1 morning later, they exploded at inspection. Then he attempted to blame me, bribe me, curse his apprentice, and use a hidden stabilized sample as proof. Laid out like that, even his friends looked tired. Thern tried the usual defenses. Miscommunication. Apprentice error. Unusual battlefield conditions. Glassmaker incompetence. Political enemies. At one point, he suggested my mirror glass cloak was illegal weaponry. Chief Assessor Marilyn looked at the cracked, smoking, half-functional thing hanging from my shoulders and said, "It appears to be clothing under extreme emotional strain." Again, I liked her. The court did not issue final punishment that day. Institutions enjoy paperwork the way dragons enjoy treasure, but they issued immediate protections. My license was restored pending final ruling. The Vorn workshop was cleared of primary fault. Thern's active military supply contracts were suspended. His laboratory was sealed. Lysa's apprenticeship bond was transferred to court protection. And every bottle, potion note, heat room log, and payment ledger connected to Thunderblood was seized before sunset. That last part hurt him most. Status can survive rumors. Ledgers are crueler. Outside the court, the artisan quarter waited in a thick crowd under pale afternoon light. News had already outrun us because gossip in Valemere moved faster than courier hawks and had better stamina. When I stepped out wearing a cracked mirror mantle over scorched gray linen, the crowd did not cheer. People like us were careful with public joy. But Master Pell, an old lampmaker who had once refused to sell me cheap sand because he said I would learn bad habits, removed his cap. Then another artisan did the same. Then another. That quiet respect nearly broke me. Mara burst through the crowd and slammed into me hard enough to make the mirror scales clink. "You are impossible," she said into my coat. "I prefer innovative. You reflected a noble curse in court. Only a small one." Elias. Medium. Mother came slower. She touched the edge of the mirror mantle with 2 fingers, then looked at my face. "Your father would have said it needed polishing." I laughed and my eyes burned. He would be right. Lysa stood a few paces away, free of Thern's mark but not free of the fear it had taught her. When I looked at her, she gave me a small nod. Captain Varus approached with the expression of a man whose paperwork had multiplied. "Artisan Vorn," he said, "the Crown may request consultation on safer potion containment." "May. Will. Then the Crown may pay consultation rates." His eyebrowless face remained solemn. "Higher than bottle rates." "Much higher." Mara whispered, "Say absurdly higher." I did not look at her. "Absurdly higher," I said. Captain Varus nodded as if that were reasonable. "Submit a schedule." Thern emerged last, no longer walking like a beloved master. 2 court guards escorted him. His robes were still fine, but somehow they looked borrowed now. The crowd parted. No one bowed. That was the first real consequence. Rank is partly fabric, mostly it is everyone agreeing to pretend. Once they stop, the robe is just cloth. Thern stopped near me. The guards did not let him get close. "You think this makes you powerful?" he asked. His voice was raw from the rebound. I considered several answers. Cruel ones. Clever ones. The kind that would sound satisfying in a story and shame me later. Instead, I said no, it makes my workshop safe for one more night, that is enough for today. He stared at me with pure hatred. Then Lysa stepped beside me. Not behind me. Beside me. And tomorrow, she said, we testify about the first batch. Theron looked at her as if she had changed species. Maybe she had. Maybe we both had. That night I returned to my workshop under no guard for the first time in 3 days. The seal was gone from the door. The furnace was mine again. I should have slept. Instead, I repaired the cracked mirror mantle until dawn. Because blocking one curse by accident was survival. Doing it again on purpose would be craft. The final ruling came 11 days later, but Theron's empire started collapsing within hours. First, the royal army cancelled the Thunderblood deployment. Then the quartermaster office froze all open payments to Theron's laboratory. Then 3 noble houses requested private retrieval of their invested research funds, which is a polite way of saying rich people smelled smoke and wanted their furniture out of the fire. By the 4th day, the Potion Guild announced an internal ethics review. No one believed in the ethics. Everyone believed in the review. By the 6th day, 7 apprentices had come forward. Lysa was not the only one marked, just the first one brave enough to stand where everyone could see the chain. The court found hidden compulsion threads in work contracts, falsified batch reports, and one entire ledger of breakage fees charged to junior staff whenever Theron's experiments failed. He had built a career by making pressure flow downward. The irony was almost elegant. Pressure mishandled breaks the vessel. Meanwhile, my workshop became unbearable. Not in a bad way. In a noisy way. Artisans came to ask about stress testing. Alchemists came pretending they had always respected glass. Military clerks came with forms. Nobles came with guards and offers that began with flattery and ended with ownership. One baron's son offered to buy the Vorn furnace outright. I asked if he also wanted my lungs and fingerprints. He did not laugh. Mara did. I refused every offer that required exclusive rights. That confused people. The old Elias might have taken one. A noble patron could protect us, a rich contract could save us, a powerful name could make the market stop spitting when we passed. But I had lived one life inside institutions that confused protection with control. I knew what happened when your craft depended on permission from people who did not understand the craft. So I set boundaries in writing. The Vorn workshop would sell products, not secrets. We would consult on safety, not hide failures. We would license designs for specific uses, not surrender ownership. All volatile potion containers required pressure classification, annealing records, and furnace stress certification. Every bottle would be marked with batch number, glass composition, cooling time, and intended potion class. The first time I presented that system to the Potion Guild, 3 senior alchemists looked like I had asked them to bathe in vinegar. Artisan Vorn, one said, surely this level of documentation is excessive. I smiled. Master Theron also thought that. The room adopted documentation very quickly. Lysa joined my workshop on the 8th day. Not as an assistant. As a partner in alchemical compatibility testing. She arrived with 1 trunk, 2 notebooks, and the haunted expression of someone waiting for kindness to become a trap. Mara gave her the upstairs room with the least roof leakage. Mother made tea. I showed her the bench where she could work without anyone standing behind her. She touched the clean slate tabletop like it might vanish. No obedience marks, I said. No private punishments, no formula work without written safety notes, no testing alone after 9th bell. Her mouth trembled. That sounds expensive. Explosions are more expensive. She laughed softly. After that, she began helping me test potion glass interaction. Her knowledge filled the gaps in mine. I understood pressure, heat, stress, and structure. She understood potion temperament, mana appetite, ingredient aggression, and the way certain brews lied politely until shaken. Together, we created the 2nd generation of pressure-safe vials. The first could survive 8 pressure marks. The second survived 12. The third did something stranger. When filled with diluted curse ink, the layered wall did not just hold pressure. It bent the curse thread into a loop until it consumed itself. That discovery kept me awake for 2 nights. Glass could trap curses. Not destroy them, not always, but contain them if layered correctly and cooled without stress. The furnace flame turned blue whenever the trap geometry was wrong. Danger, not solution, still no shortcuts. Good. I did not trust shortcuts. The mirror shards improved too. The first quart shard had reflected a minor curse and cracked. The new ones could reflect 3 weak spite hexes before clouding. Lysa tested them using registry-approved practice curses while wearing gloves and a deeply unimpressed expression. You know, she said one evening, most artisans become famous and then make luxury perfume bottles. I have considered it. Have you? No. She smiled into her notebook. There was something warm growing there, quiet and inconvenient, not a romance sung by bards, more like 2 exhausted people learning the exact shape of each other's silences. I did not rush it. Some things crack if cooled too fast. On the 11th day, the court summoned us for final judgment. Thern stood without rings. I noticed that first. No silver bands, no emerald pin, no apprentice chain at his shoulder. Just a man in expensive robes discovering fabric could not hold him upright. Chief Assessor Merlin read the ruling for 22 minutes. Thern's alchemical license was revoked for 9 years pending reapplication. His military contracts were terminated. His laboratory assets were frozen until injured soldiers, apprentices, and subcontractors were compensated. His noble research grants were suspended. His name was removed from the Royal War Potion Registry. And because he had used compulsion curses to suppress safety testimony, the Oath Registry barred him from employing apprentices for life. That last one made Lysa close her eyes. Not in satisfaction. In relief. Then Merlin turned to me. The court recognizes Elias Vorn as injured supplier and technical witness. The Vorn workshop is cleared of fault. Furthermore, the court recommends creation of a new artisan classification for layered monoglass, pressure containment, and reflective curse defense. She adjusted her spectacles. Provisional title, Mirror Glass Battle Artisan. The words moved through the room like light through a lens. Mirror Glass Battle Artisan. Not bottle seller. Not cheap supplier. Not scapegoat. A new path. Mine. Thern made one final attempt outside the hall. He approached with 2 former patrons hovering at a safe distance and offered what desperate, powerful men always offer when consequences finally learn their address. Money. Apology. Partnership. Access to noble clients. A public statement that we had both been victims of process failure. I listened politely. Then I said no. His face tightened. You would waste my expertise. No, I said, the court already did that when it revoked your license. You cannot build this field without alchemists. I have one. Lysa stood beside me, holding her notebooks. Thern looked at her. For a moment I thought he might curse her again. Then his eyes dropped to the mirror scales along my shoulders. He chose silence. A wise first step, late but wise. Power did not arrive like thunder. It arrived like orders stacked on a bench. 30 vials for the royal healers. 72 pressure tubes for the artillery mages. 12 curse-safe evidence jars for the Oath Registry. 4 mirror shields for noble guards who suddenly remembered that glass existed. 200 common medicine bottles for the market because fame did not cancel rent. We worked until my hands blistered in new places. The workshop changed one practical improvement at a time. We fixed the roof, bought better sand, installed a second annealing chest, hired Pell's youngest nephew who was clumsy but honest and only dropped 1 tray per week after training. Mara took over batch records with terrifying competence. My mother returned to etching seal rings on good days, and on bad days she sat by the furnace telling apprentices stories about my grandfather until they worked slower and better. The Vorn workshop became known for one rule. Nothing left until the flame approved. Customers laughed at first, then a noble curse mage named Lord Ivan Drax came to teach me humility and stopped laughing. He arrived 2 months after Thern's fall, wearing black velvet and the bored expression of a man who had ruined servants for sport. He wanted a mirror glass cloak, but he wanted it cheaply, secretly, and without registry marks. "No," I said. He smiled. "Artisan, I do not think you understand who I am. That sentence should be taxed." "I understand," I said. "You are someone asking me to violate 3 court rules in my own workshop." His smile sharpened. The apprentices went very still. Lysa's hand moved toward the alarm bell. Lord Drax lifted 2 fingers. A noble pressure curse rolled toward me, heavier than Thern's, cold and elegant. It pressed against the room like invisible water. The old Elias would have collapsed. The earth technician in me would have looked for a shield wall, emergency stop, pressure release. The new me did both. I turned slightly. The finished soul mirror cloak unfolded from my shoulders. Not the cracked court prototype, not desperate copper wiring and uneven scales. This one had 640 small mirror glass plates, each layered clear silver clear, each annealed for 9 hours, each linked with flexible monothread that distributed curse pressure across the whole cloak instead of letting it strike one point. Glass bends light. Layered glass bends mana. Mirrored glass bends attention. A curse is pressure with intention behind it. The cloak caught Lord Drax's spell, spread it, cooled it, and reflected the clean shape of it back across the room. Not hard enough to injure him. Hard enough to make his knees buckle. Hard enough for him to feel exactly how he treated people. He landed on one knee on my workshop floor, staring up at me with shock so pure it almost looked innocent. The furnace flame stayed gold. No hidden stress. No danger. Just craft doing what craft was designed to do. I looked down at him. "This is why we use registry marks," I said. "Would you like to place a legal order?" He left without one. 3 days later, he placed one through his steward at full price. With registry marks. People say revenge should be hot. I disagree. Hot revenge warps, it cracks, it explodes in your hand and gives your enemies a sad story to tell about you. The best consequences are annealed. Slow, even, patient, strong enough to hold pressure when everyone else starts shaking. A year after the arrest, I stood in the same workshop where guards had come to take me away. The front door had been replaced. The furnace room had been expanded. The old sign that said Vorn bottles had been taken down. Mara unveiled the new one herself. Vorn Mirror Glass Works. Pressure Potion Curse Court Certified. She had added the last line without asking me. I pretended to be annoyed. Lysa stood beside me, shoulder brushing mine, her scar silver in the morning light. She had become the kingdom's first licensed alchemical compatibility assessor outside the Potion Guild. Thern would have hated that. That made it healthier somehow. Captain Varus attended the opening with his eyebrows mostly grown back. Chief Assessor Marilyn sent a written certificate and 1 sentence of praise, adequate work under pressure. From her, that was basically poetry. Thern did not attend. He had left Valemere after his 3rd appeal failed. Last I heard, he was selling cosmetic fizzing tonics in a border town where no military office would touch his name and no apprentice contract could legally bear his seal. I did not celebrate that. Not loudly. I had too many orders to finish. That evening, after the guests left and the apprentices swept the floor, I stood alone before Furnace 3. The flame burned gold. I held up a new mirror scale, flawless to the eye. The flame stayed gold. For a moment in the reflection, I saw 2 faces overlapping. The tired earth technician who died because someone ignored a warning. The desperate Valemere artisan who almost lost everything because someone ignored the glass. And me. Both of them and more. I used to think reincarnation meant getting a second life. It does not. It means carrying the first one carefully enough that its failures become tools instead of wounds. Thern thought glass was only there to hold his potion. The nobles thought artisans were only there to hold their blame. But glass remembers pressure, and so do people. In this life, I did not become powerful by escaping what broke me. I became powerful by learning how to reflect it.